Hello and welcome to the Cowboy Chronicles, the Oklahoman's Oklahoma State football podcast. I am your host, Scott Wright, and I am joined today by McClain Baxley of GoPokes.com, the 247 Sports Network. McClain, thank you very much for joining me. It's my first time getting you on this year. It took me way too long to get you on this year.
Glad to be back. Had a couple of fun times last year, but glad we're able to connect on this season that we're having here in Stillwater.
Absolutely, and obviously you're not able to join me here at Stonecloud today with us all being kind of spread out. It gets a little bit tricky this time of year with schedules, but I am really enjoying my Stonecloud beer on your behalf. So I'll have to get you on another occasion. So we'll make sure that we make that happen. But for the regulars, I am drinking gotta check. Super Session IPA is what I am drinking today. My first time checking this one out. Really excited. They got a lot of cool new stuff for the winter here. If you're around the Stonecloud tap room here in Stillwater, go check it out. And also want to give another shout out to my buddy Justin, who was second time in a row winning the picks contest in the YouTube comments. 2 in a row for Justin. Good old Yukon boy. Glad to see him winning again. McClain, fun story. Justin, who has won the last 2 picks contests, his mother was the secretary at my elementary school. I Justin became a good friend of mine as I met him when I got older, but I've literally known his mom since I was 4 years old, and very special, fantastic person.
A nepotism win? Is that you know the guy, so let me get him a win, or is he?
Listen. The YouTube comments show what is accurate. It's all up and up. He went in there, made the picks, almost nailed the Kansas score, which he had. I think 39-20 was his score, and obviously ended up being 38-21. So good job. He earned it. Absolutely fair and square. Now, with that said, everybody that wants to win a beer from Stonecloud that I can drink for you next week on the show, go in the YouTube comments, put your score in there for OSU Kansas State, and you have a chance to win as well. That said, McClain, we're at a point in this season, 3 games left, 2 at home. Is there anything left to be taken from what's on the table in front of this Cowboy team over the next 3 games?
I guess, until there are no games left, playing for a win. This is a team that hasn't won a conference game since BYU back in 2023 in the last game of the regular season. Since then, they have not, won a conference game. They've won 4 games since that game, or 5 games since that game, including the bowl game back in 2023. So it's a team that would just like to see a win, a fan base that would like to see a win. As the season, like you said, not a lot going for. They're out of bowl contention. They're obviously out of any conference contention. And so now it's really just playing for pride, playing for seniors, guys that they've only got 3 football games left in a college football uniform, whether they've been at OSU for a year or more, or this is their first year. Getting the chance to go out there and have 1, 2, 3 more games left with your brothers and kind of just put it all out there. And I think the other point, I think Meacham has talked about it a couple times now, is these last 3 games are really a resume, and really an audition for the coaching staff, for the players that might not want to be in Stillwater next year, to get some good film, get some good stats, get some good tape on hand, so that whenever they transfer out or they're trying to sell themselves to the new coaching staff, they've got stuff on tape that they can be proud of. So that's really what you're playing for. There's either 3 teams. I think all 3 of the teams that are going to be playing are playing for more than just pride. I think all 3 of these teams are still trying to get into bowl conversation. Iowa State at the end of the year has maybe a bit more on the line, but yeah, it's hard to get up for these games at this point in the season.
Yeah, it absolutely is. But what you pointed out about this being a player or a coach's resume, I think is really important. I think it's why we've seen the buy-in level remain as high as it has. Obviously there were guys who had business decisions to make, and they had a chance to save their year, redshirt, go into the portal, those type of things. But from the guys that have stuck around, the buy-in level has remained incredibly high, as opposed to last year at this time, especially once you got past that BYU game, it felt like things started to taper off a little bit, to the point where by the time you got to that Colorado game, it felt like nobody was all that interested in being there that morning. So it just hasn't felt that way with this team, and I think what you're saying right there is a big part of it.
Yeah, I mean, we're not obviously in the locker room. We're not at practice. So how much of that is the coaching staff kind of, it's a new, pretty much everybody. This is their first year in Stillwater, first year on staff with the Cowboys, and so I don't know if it's them kind of being like, hey, stick with it, keep getting up for practicing games, versus last year where, like you said, really after that BYU game, it just really trickled out, and there was no real excitement in the locker area on the field, and with the team or players and stuff. So, if that's been a shift that these guys are more excited for, if they're more bought in, but it's at least a little refreshing to see that they're still, playing hard. There's still a lot of running around, especially defensively, where it seems like there are improvements that have been made, even though like we've all seen, and Doug Meacham said earlier today, Monday, that the score hasn't resulted in the changes being made, but there's been improvements on that side of the ball. So there's guys that are still working hard, even if the results aren't coming yet.
All right. Well, it's really hard to know what to expect from this team. Kansas State is equally hard to predict because they've been kind of up and down as well. So we'll talk about the game itself a little bit later when we get to the Stonecloud six-pack. But you have been you've been right there at the forefront as all of us are trying to report on what is happening in this coaching search, and I think it's been fascinating to watch because I've never been a part of anything like this. With I've handled very few coaching searches, period, but certainly not one that was going on, with 2 months left in the season like we were dealing with a little while ago. So it's been very interesting, and people can go check out your reporting on the head coaching search that you've done an excellent job with. But I don't want you to give away all the goods. So my question to you about this is, in doing your research for this and learning about these candidates, has there been anything interesting or surprising, unique, whatever, anything that just kind of jumped out at you as you've been learning about some of these candidates for the Oklahoma State job?
Yeah, I mean, I think for a long time, Oklahoma State, especially early on in Gundy's tenure, and really, that 2010, 2011, 2012 era, you thought offense. When you thought of Oklahoma State, Justin Blackman, Brandon Whedon, these guys, just putting up a lot of points, and they're going to outscore you. Whether the defense plays or not, they're going to put up enough points where it won't matter. And it seems like in a lot of the guys that they're talking to and talking with and names that have continued to come up, offense is the leading factor. You think of Eric Morris, a guy out of North Texas, has a really good offensive mind. Alex Golish, same way. Zach Robinson, an offensive coordinator. All these names that are continuing to float to the surface have offensive. So I think it's interesting and curious that that is something that's been a leading factor. Is can you run a good offense? Can you work with quarterbacks well? Because that's something that's really been lacking these last 5 years. And, even back in 2021, where they went to the Fiesta Bowl, came up a yard short making the playoff. That was a large part of the defense, and what Jim Knowles was able to do with that, historic defense. The offense, was able to score, and there was a couple good games, but it wasn't like they had anything insane to write home about. And since I've been here, from 2023 on, the offense, other than Ollie Gordon in 23, has left a lot to be desired. Outside of beating up on Tulsa last year, and it took 2 overtimes against Arkansas to really put that offense together, but. The offense just hasn't been there. So I think it's interesting that they're wanting to go back to their roots, wanting that to be a big focus as they dwindle down Canada.
Yeah, it's fascinating you mentioned that because I was talking to somebody recently, and they tossed out a name, and they're like, "What have you heard about this guy?" I was like, hey, in my head, I'm like, I don't even know who that is. And I was like, I haven't really heard anything. Kind of brushed it off. Had to go look up later, and it was a defensive coordinator. And it hasn't been at the forefront of the discussion at all, with the exception of maybe Jim Knowles, whose name I don't think has really ever been serious, but has always been out there. There hasn't really been a defensive coach that has ever kind of popped to the forefront of this search. And it is kind of fascinating, but it's absolutely been an offensive focused search.
And I think that's definitely there are other schools and other things we've seen this year and past years that they are looking at defense. You think back to when Lincoln Riley left, Brent Venables, one of the top defensive minds in the country, was towards the top of the list for Oklahoma. Other defensive coordinators, defensive position coaches have made good head coaches across the country in different spots, but it seems like, that's been the biggest focus is making sure Oklahoma State has offensive power as they move into 2026 and beyond.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And when you look at a guy like Eric Morris, who has a young, talented quarterback that he could possibly bring with him, that's even more exciting from that perspective. A guy that has something a little bit built in already. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out. Got a few more questions for you later on the coaching search itself, but. Wanted to ask you, because this is something that I think about a lot, being the selfish person that I am. What is your, from a media perspective, your ideal scenario for the next head coach at Oklahoma State? We've had certainly one of the most unique situations with Mike Gundy because he is such a unique person to cover and to deal with on a regular basis. A lot of these guys, these younger guys, are more media trained than Gundy was, and you've got some other guys that are older and more outside the box. So I'm curious, just from a media perspective. I'm not saying you're Chad Weiberg making the hire. Just from a media perspective, what would be your ideal scenario for the Oklahoma State head coaching job?
I think the biggest thing is accessibility, whether that's in interviews, whether that's in being able to watch practice or scrimmages. I think to Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State. Arizona State made the playoff last year, won the Big 12, has been very successful. This is his third year in charge of the program, and they get to watch most practices, in preseason and regular season. They get to talk to players more than just a day. I think at Oklahoma State they do a pretty good job of giving us 3 or 4 players before game, giving us the same a couple players on the ball post game. Getting to the head coach, and now in the past couple of weeks, getting both Doug Meacham and also Clint Bowen after games has been pretty nice. But yeah, I just think it's accessibility. And I don't know, I've never covered any of these coaches, that we're mentioning and that have been brought up as, my whole time here. I've been covering Mike Gundy, but that's the biggest thing for me is I understand, that they can't show us every single play that they're going to run against Kansas State next week, but I think giving us the opportunity to see practice, and so that when we're, I think back to earlier this year when the whole debate was Zane Fuller versus Haas Haney, and people were asking me, people were asking you, how's practice looking, and all we can really base off of is the 5-minute highlight clip that they send us every couple of days. And so whereas if we were able to go to practice and not report on everything we saw, but have an understanding of what's actually going on, what the reps look like, that would better inform fans, better inform us as media members when we're watching the game on Saturday, and better inform our questions and our relationship to the staff and team. So that's one thing, and the accessibility trickles down. I know, Scott, you've been there for longer than I have, but I don't think you've talked to a position coach during your time there, on the record anyway, of some of the, especially the last year's staff that was there for 2+ years. A lot of those guys were, and they were never made available. And I don't think it's not likely that we talk to them every day or every week. But at some point, when you got a All-American running back, it'd be nice to talk to the running backs coach about how he found Gordon, or what's it like working with him in the weight room or in the practice field, and just getting those check-ins, just accessibility. So whichever coach can provide that would be the guy that I would have my rooting in. And it would help if he could win a couple of games too, to make our lives more exciting.
I agree, and the accessibility aspect. Like I listen to you talking to a running backs coach, and I lose my mind, because like at this point, I was happy when we got to start talking to Clint Bowen. Just getting a coordinator, or the one day that we got Todd Grantham. Of course, he got fired the next morning, but getting to talk to a coordinator, which we hadn't got to do in a couple of years, was fantastic. I think back to guys that came and went here and were here for multiple years that I never spoke to. Tim Rattay, Charlie Dickey, never interviewed either one of them that I can recall. And then then this entire staff, other than the guys that we obviously have gotten to talk to, I'm never going to get to have a conversation with Corey Patterson or Ryan Osborne. And it's tough. I realize coaches are very protective and and don't want the extra distractions and all of that kind of stuff. But it's really not not as dangerous as people would have you believe whenever you're talking about what's going to be given away by a position coach, an assistant coach, or whatever it might be. The access that is allowed, we're not taking advantage of it in a way that is going to be detrimental, going to give anything away, going to speak to a program speak about the program in a negative way. So it's I'm right there with you. The only thing that I would add is that Todd Monken, I only interviewed him one time back in 2012 when I was just helping out one day, and he was fascinating and fantastic. I don't think that he is a legitimate candidate anymore at this point, but I would have loved if that could have been the scenario, because I loved every opportunity I got to spend some time with that guy in an interview setting.
Yeah, I always enjoy. You mentioned that one interview when we talked with Grantham, the Baylor game, I guess it was, and he was just going over schemes, going over just football talk, and just kind of telling us why they did schemes, why they did those plays or formations, and what those looked like and how they came out. I think it's interesting. You mentioned Monkey. I talked to him for a story. I think it's last year, 2 years ago, for Justin Blackman's story, and I only got 2 or 3 minutes with him, but he just kind of went off and was recalling stories and using language that wasn't for print, but definitely a joy to talk to him. And I agree. I don't think he's going to be making his way to Stillwater anytime soon. But yeah, a guy that's got personality. Obviously, I don't know if you want Mike Gundy level of anything can happen at a press conference where he lifts his shirt up one day and chews out a reporter the next day, but just the having a personality that's fun to write about. I think back when I was in Athens, UGA Kirby Smart is very locked up. He's got a little personality, but for the most part, very cut and dry. I need to get back to practice. I need to get back to film as soon as possible. I'm going to talk to you for 5 minutes. You're not going to see me practice, and obviously it's worked. He's won a couple championships, but finding a guy that's personable and that's what I've really enjoyed. All the hires that Weiberg's made. David Taylor, Steve Lutz, and J.C. Hoyt. They're all got personality. They're all winning. They're able to. And I love talking to Steve Lutz about ball, and he breaks down why they're going man versus zone, or what they like about this one player on their team, or he's in the other team. Same with J.C. There's very knowledgeable, but also very personable. Done a good job of keying in on that when it comes to us and for fans. Getting that clip that they can use for promotion or for reels or highlights and stuff is also important as they grow these brands, and especially for football, which needs to be the biggest brand at Oklahoma State. And so I think I trust Weiberg to make that. Now that he's listened to this, he can take our word to the search firm as they continue the search.
Yeah, no, I'm quite certain that they're just waiting for this to drop on YouTube so they can formulate their plan for the rest of the week. All right, McClain, I think it's time for the Stonecloud 6-pack. So we will knock this out of the park right here with some fun final 6 questions. We're going to start. This one might be fun. It might not be, depending on our answers. 3 games left in this season. Is Oklahoma State going to win a Big 12 game this season?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think their best chance came 2 weeks ago against Kansas, and for half it looked like they really for 28 minutes it looked like they could have. I think those, we both written and talked about it. I mean, those last 2 minutes were kind of a microcosm for the season. You have a really good drive, and then you get down to the goal line, able to either score a touchdown, which I think I've talked to people that I think they should have either ran it or trusted, really ran the ball with any of the 3 running backs we got. And instead they settle for a field goal, and then it gets blocked, and at that point the season's over. So that was their best chance. I think Kansas State, there's some things that Oklahoma State could do well. I just think the team overall is just not at the competitive level of any of these teams on the schedule. Very few teams in the Power Four that they could steal a win from, even at home. Even if it was a night game at home during homecoming with hundreds of shirtless guys in the stands, I still don't think that that can get them over the edge of a lot of teams. So no, I'm not sure that they get a win to end the 2025 season.
Yeah, I'm with you on Kansas being the missed opportunity. It's really funny back in August when there was still positive excitement around this team. You looked at the schedule and you're like, oh, this sets up perfect because their toughest opponents come to Stillwater. Their easier ones are on the road. Games like Kansas, UCF. You thought, okay, this is a good schedule for them. And now it ended up being that you needed it flipped so you could have maybe some of these winnable opponents coming to Stillwater, although I sort of thought Houston and Cincinnati might have been on that list, and then it turned out that they weren't either. So,
or even Tulsa.
That's also a fair point. They got them at home, and it didn't make a difference. So, I think that they have the talent level to compete with UCF, but being at the bounce house, we all know what happened there last time back in 2023 and how poorly that went once it started raining. All the things that went wrong that day. But UCF's a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde team. If they have a bad day and everything clicks just right for OSU, maybe they win that game. But ultimately, I'm going to say no. We're going to cover three more losses. And it's going to
be a Jaden Nixon revenge game.
That's exactly right.
Season down there in Orlando after transferring from Oklahoma State to
Western Michigan,
and then down to UCF, and has done pretty well. So I think he's going to be definitely a little bit more inspired than he would have against. That's like you said. I agree that that's probably their, on paper their easiest game left, but again on the road in a place that they lost by 1,000 2 years ago. So yeah.
All right, next one, we're going to move back to the coaching search. December 3rd is the date. That is signing day for or the opening of the early signing period, I guess, technically. And my question is, will Oklahoma State have a head coach on December 3rd? Will they have somebody to bring in all the high school signings that they may or may not have?
I believe so. Whether that guy is announced or not, or if he's working behind the scenes and is able to call these 8 recruits they've got on board and maybe reach back out to some that have decommitted or guys that were on the board at one point. But I think by December 3rd, that Wednesday, they will have a coach. The season ends on the 29th, Saturday. A lot of the guys that they're looking at their regular season in that week, and obviously, a lot of the coaches that are still in play are in conference championship position. But it wouldn't be the first time that a coach has signed to take a new job and still seen his current season through. Obviously, you'd want that guy to be fully all in on the Cowboys. But for a couple of days, I think Oklahoma State would be willing to afford him to go out and coach in the conference championship if they're eligible, while still keeping an eye on the high school scene. What little of it left. I think the biggest thing is the transfer portal, as we've seen across the sports. But I think by the 3rd they will have a kid.
I want to get your thoughts on this because you do cover recruiting more closely than I do. Have you been surprised that Oklahoma State has had some positive momentum in recruiting, even though, Meacham has been open about the fact that the coaching staff really isn't involved in it. It's Kenyatta Wright, Todd Bradford, and their staffs that are getting this done. But they're recruiting into a lamed up coaching situation right now, not knowing who the head coach is going to be. Did it surprise you? This isn't an official question of the Stonecloud Six-Pack, by the way, but wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, this is like a shot on the side that you get with
exactly.
Here. I think it's been impressive. Obviously, that first week or so, they lost half their recruits. They lost all their big ones, Irvington and the Danny Beal. But they've still got Braden Presley, who is the prize jewel of this recruiting class. He's a kid that loves Oklahoma State. Both his brothers went here at some point. Obviously, Braden Presley went here for a long time. He loves Oklahoma State. I talked to Aiden Martin and Julius, guys that Aiden Martin recommitted last week after decommitting, and then Julius Wilson got they're just in state. Both of them from the Tulsa area. One guy's from Berry Hill, one guy plays at Owasso. They just love Oklahoma State. They love Stillwater, love the tradition, and if they can go out and get a good coach and just take I feel like a lot of this class loves OSU, wants to love OSU, as long as OSU loves them back. And to this point, Bradford and Kenyon, and I'm sure some of the players have helped. Some of the former players have helped keep them in line, keep them in place. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, OSU has just shown that there's 20 years of winning in place that the next coach will be able to step into. I think a lot of these guys just love OSU. So it's a little surprising, but also not at the same time as there's for this university.
All right, back to the official Stonecloud six-pack now. The third one of the first segment here. Mike Gundy has been very quiet since his firing. I think that we're going to hear from him probably at some point, maybe not till next year, but I think we'll hear from him again eventually. My question for you is, next year, 2026 football season, rank these three potential professions for Mike Gundy in order of most likely to least likely. They are a coach, a TV personality, and a farmer.
I think above all, Rich, right? He just got $15 million to not work again. But I think in that order, I'd go personality, coach, and then farmer. Guy, there's been reported, Joe up there talked to Cale Gundy, days after he was fired, that he still wants to coach. I know his name's been kind of circulated at the Arkansas job, either as a coach or as a coordinator or position coach. I know Colorado State is a school that's flirted with the 20-year veteran coach. And I think he doesn't want his legacy to be tarnished with two losing. What do you go? I guess 4 and 14, 15 until the last two seasons or so. He doesn't want to go out with two losing seasons. I think he's a powerful man that has a lot of pride and doesn't want that to be his final legacy, even though it was his final legacy at Oklahoma State. And then personality, obviously, we've seen him thrive on sets, whether in Big 12 Media Day or in interviews and press conferences with us, interviews, with ESPN and Vox, besides CBS. So I think that's the leading candidate, just because I think he's a little bit of a risk. As we saw, Gundy, he was all offense. That's how he got his start as a offensive coordinator and running the about earlier, but went away in recent years. I don't think it was all resources, as he mentioned, before they played Oregon, and that's been a subject over the past couple of years. So I don't know what the market is for Gundy in 2025 coach, but those would be. I don't think it's fully over for him. What is your expected order?
Yeah, I agree that I don't think he's done coaching. I think he'll come back at some point. I don't know where. I don't know when. I don't think it's next year, though. I'm going to rank them in this order. I'm going to go TV personality number 1, farmer number 2, and coach number 3. I think that there's a really good chance that I'm surprised he hasn't shown up on TV yet somewhere. I mean, we've already seen James Franklin make an appearance on was it Big Noon? I think the Big Noon kickoff.
College Game Day went on, and
is that what it was? Yeah, I couldn't remember which one. But yeah, so I'm surprised we haven't seen Gundy on something like that yet at this point. And I think that whether it's something like that, whether it's calling a game, whatever it might be, I think that's the most likely thing for him next year. And then I could see him being back in coaching in 2027 maybe. But hey, if I've learned anything covering Mike Gundy for as many years as I have, it's to expect the unexpected. So I'm not going to pretend like I have any clue what he's actually going to do.
On that, you covered him for a long time. I'm curious. We've seen, he was not the first coach fired this season. He's not been the most recent, and a lot of these coaches have come out and made statements about, why they were fired. They gave a thank you to the fans or to the school. I'm curious if your thoughts on he hasn't made a tweet, he hasn't made a Facebook, he hasn't gone any show and talked. I don't think he's given a public quote since that Monday before his press conference, or at his press conference the Monday before firing. I'm curious, right. If just your thoughts on him not, him being the since that firing.
Yeah, I figured there would be something social media related that I'm sure he would have to get one of his sons to help him get it out there, because we know his love of social media and using it in particular. But I think I was surprised that there wasn't some sort of statement made through a social media post of some kind, just to salute the fans for all the years of support and that sort of thing. I think there'll probably be something at some point, but I was a little surprised. Now I didn't expect him, to show up at what would have been the Baylor game. I guess I didn't, show up and wave at the crowd or that kind of thing, or whatever it might be. But I thought there would have been a little something. I do think it's a little unexpected that he would stay this quiet for this long. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with him from there. All right, McClain. That brings us to the draft here at the back end of the Stonecloud six pack. This one was inspired by the fact that it is freezing cold outside here. This wind is bitter cold, and I hate it. I hate this time of year in Oklahoma. It's the only time of year that I don't like living here. Is this few months of bitter cold wind that we get, and so it got me thinking about all the other places that I wish I could live this time of year. And so that's the draft for today. Long way to get there, but that's our draft. If money wasn't an object, if being close to family wasn't a part of the equation, where would you want to live? 3 places, 3 rounds in the draft, and the first pick, of course, goes to you, McClain Baxley.
Well, you mentioned the cold. It is freezing. I was triple layered today, super windy. But I think Boston. I've been twice now. Boston, love it up there. Again, both times I went was in the summer. When it wasn't, it was in the summer. One time it was in June. One time in July, when it was in the high 70s, 80s, windy, perfect weather. But I loved it up there, and so that's probably the place. I'm not huge. I'm not a Reds. I'm a Braves fan, but going to Finland both those times was special. Even though the Red Sox lost both games, it's still super cool to be at. All the little neighborhoods, things to explore, and then you got Harvard and all those different areas. It's just a lot of history, a lot of personality. It's such a cool historic city. That'd be my first pick off the top of my head. Sure.
Really strong, really strong. I would have to be up there in the winter to know for sure if I would be willing to live there. Like you, I've only been there in the summer. And my first trip was actually just last summer. Got to go up there for the first time. I timed it around a Yankees-Red Sox game at Fenway, which was the coolest thing ever. It was a Friday night game. Aaron Judge hits a home run in the top of the ninth. They go to the 10th. The Red Sox walk it off. Fantastic Fenway experience. I could not have imagined a better moment there. Love the city in general, but I would have to see what wintertime feels like. Now I realize that winter is not as windy everywhere else as it is here, and the wind I think is what bothers me in Oklahoma more than anything. So I might be able to survive in some of these northern cities if we're not going to get the wind chill. So, but that said, my first pick. San Diego, California. I've never had a bad experience going there. I went there. I guess my 4th trip to San Diego was also this summer, and got to go out there and do some stuff with my son. And we drove up to. Actually, we didn't drive. We took the Amtrak from San Diego to LA along the coast, which was fantastic. Really cool place, but I love it there every time I get to go. First time, or not the first time, but my most memorable trip to San Diego was actually covering Oklahoma State. I've been on the beat since 2017, but in 2008 I had 1 year where I covered the team, and they went to the Holiday Bowl that year. And this was back in the days when newspapers still thought they were printing money. So they send me to San Diego for the entire week. I fly out on Christmas Day, and I'm there until I think the game was on like the 30th. And so I just got to hang out in San Diego and work like 3 hours a day because there wasn't that much going on, and just enjoy San Diego. And that's when I fell in love with that place. So, and it was the week between Christmas and New Year's, and it never got below 65 degrees. And I knew that was where I needed to be.
I've never been to California, but
Really?
San Diego definitely towards the top of the list out of the cities out there. You've seen both Oregon games live.
Yeah, that's right. I really enjoyed it up there as well. But second pick to you.
I'll go international. I'll say London. I think I've never been really out of the country. I've been to the Dominican once. But yeah, I mean, again, similar vibes. So much history over there. So many things to do. So much coldness for much of the year. Very dreary. I'm a Tottenham Hotspur fan, and they to get together the stadium would be cool, and just the all the ambience and passion with British football and being over there would be sweet. Growing up, big movie fan, big, reader of Harry Potter and all that comes with that, and getting to see those sites in real life, not at Orlando Universal, would be really neat. I don't know, in similar, but I know it gets into single digits there. So I don't know if I can deal with that to my southern self, but yeah, that'd be pick number two is somewhere in the UK.
That's solid. I really want to make a trip over there and see a variety of things. London, other places in England, also Scotland. Being the golf nerd that I am, would love to go to the birthplace of that sport. So that would be that's another strong pick from you. I'm going back. This pick is probably more inspired by the wind out here today, but I'm going Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm going all in on heat. I do not mind heat. I can survive with the warmth, but the cold I don't do. I've got to. You missed out on both the Phoenix trips, didn't you? For the 21 and 22 bowl games, that was right before you got on the beat. So
I went out there for. I went to Tempe 2023 when they.
That's right.
You.
Yes.
But very different.
Yes, the bowl games in the Phoenix area, both fantastic trips, and also going to Tempe was really cool, even though it was a quick one. I love that area. Would love some having spring training baseball all around me for the entire February and March. I'd be all in on that, and like I said, I can live with the heat. I'll deal with it. So so that's my second pick. Now the final round for you, McClain.
I'll go. I know I cover Oklahoma State for a living. My third season doing it, but I've been to Austin twice now. Austin, Texas, loved it. I went, once in December a couple years ago, and then this past February I went and loved it. So much good food, so many cool things. You got it's a good mixture of college town, but also it's the capital, big city. I think you get both those down there. It's hot for a lot of, it's Texas for a lot of it. Also, it gets different climates as opposed to like, some areas where it's cold all the time or hot all the time. There are seasons in Austin, I feel like, so that's refreshing. But yeah, I really love Austin. Both times we've gone, it's like, could we move here? And obviously not going to happen, but definitely a very cool city with a lot of personality and a lot of things to do. And I've really enjoyed both.
Yeah, I have missed Texas not being on the schedule just for that opportunity to get to go down there on a regular basis. I know a lot of people who are OU fans, and they play their game against Texas in Dallas every year. They never get to go down to Austin. I try to explain to them how much they're missing out on by not getting to go to Austin every other year for a game like that. But they don't care. They like the Dallas thing, and more power to them for that. So now that was you're leaving me with a decision, because I actually had Austin on my list as well, because I'm a big fan of that place too. I'm gonna go up to the Pacific Northwest. I'm trying to narrow it down. I've been to Seattle. I've been into Portland to go to the two games at Oregon and Oregon State that you mentioned earlier. I don't know where I'm going to choose, but I think I'm just going to go with Eugene, Oregon. I think that would be my option. That was a really cool trip up there earlier this year. Probably a little bit of recency bias on my part, but I really enjoyed going up to the coast. Went out and saw the what's called Cannon Beach, where they call it Goonies Rock. I don't remember the name of the actual rock. It's from the Goonies movie, and got to do that. Went to the Tillamook Creamery, had some delicious cheese, which I'm a big fan of. So, and the weather up there was incredible. You got some scenery. All of it was really cool. So I think that's going to have to be my last option here.
Really thought the Cubs fan would pick Chi-Town. You not too
Again,
cold?
I love going to Chicago, but listen, if I could work out Chicago in the summer and Scottsdale in the winter, that would absolutely be, or even Boston in the summer and Scottsdale in the winter. I would take that and make the double up there. But I could not survive through some of those northern winters, I'm afraid. So I do not handle the cold well. I've been sweating all day because I'm wearing so many layers to handle the 2 minutes that I have to walk to my car. So yeah. I don't do well with the cold. All right, McClain, I think we've covered everything that we could possibly cover today. Thank you very much for taking time to join me. I'm sorry, didn't get you on sooner in the season when we had something exciting on the football field to discuss. But we got it done anyway. Keep up the good work on the coaching search. You're doing really good with that, as we're all competing to try and provide the best news possible. It's been a tricky situation because Chad Weiberg does not like to let any information out at all. So it takes a lot of work, and we're all doing our best. And keep up your hard work on that. And hopefully we'll get to talk again soon here on the Cowboy Chronicles. Thank you for joining me.